hope we can start now. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone who is joining this webinar from all around the world. On behalf of SLTC Research University and the Organizing Committee of VICLIS 2022, I warmly welcome you to the second webinar of the pre-conference webinar series. VICLIS, which is the virtual international conference on library and information science, is the largest of its kind which is organized by Sri Lanka. With the success of the maiden conference, which was held last year, we are organizing this conference for the consecutive second year in collaboration with 5 international partners, namely International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, American Library Association, Hellenic Open University Greece, University of Bari Aldo Moro, Italy, and Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Zagreb, Croatia. Not only that, we do have 3 local partners as well, namely the National Science Foundation, commonly known as the NSF, the National Library of Sri Lanka, and the Library Association. This year's theme, as you may know already, is the libraries as drivers for achieving Sustainable Development Goals 2030. And the conference will be held on 25th of October 2022 from 10:30 a.m. onwards. We now accept abstracts, extended abstracts, and posters until the 26th of September 2022. And if you have not submitted your abstract as of yet, it's time. So without taking much more time, let me introduce the resource person of today's webinar, which is titled Supporting the SDGs, Experience of the Librarians Association of Malaysia. We have with us today Dr. Noor Edson Chenazir, who is currently a member and a secretary of IFLA Regional Standing Division, Asia Oceania. She is also a member of the IFLA Information Literary Section and a board member of FANG Public Library Malaysia. I'm not sure whether I pronounced it correctly. She was also the president of the Librarians Association of Malaysia from 2014 to 2016. With more than 26 years of experience as an academic librarian and 8 years as an academician, her area of expertise is information literacy. At the same time, her research interest centers on social media usage, management of library associations, and journal publishing. Dr. Edson, my warm invitation goes to you to share your experiences with us. And one more announcement before we start. Since there will be a time allocated for Q&As, you can send your questions to the chat box so that we can attend to them later when time permits. And thank you very much. So over to you, Dr. Edson.
Thank you, Delisha, for the warm welcome. I will share my screen first, so that we don't get into any technical mishaps. I'm sharing my screen now. Hang on. Okay, can I share my screen now, because it's giving me a message saying that only the host can share? One moment, I can't share my screen, Delisha.
Hang on a second. I think you should be able to now.
I will try again because. Okay, now I'm okay. Someone said they cannot hear me. I think I have put on myself on really loud. Let me share my screen first, and then we get back to that one. Okay, thank you. Sorry for the technicality just now. Okay, I hope everyone can see my slide and everyone can hear me as well. My name is Noor Edson Chenazir. Delisha did ask me which part of my name is which one. My name is the first one. Noor Edson Chenazir is my late father's name. So in Malaysia, we do it that way. Our name is in front and our father's name is at the back. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to be sharing with you my experiences, or rather the Library Association's experiences in supporting the SDGs. Yeah, I was talking to Delisha and Hasita just now. We began embarking on the SDG initiatives in 2020, and then we were stuck by COVID. So everything was put on hold, but we still managed to do things online. And only now we are getting back to physical meetings. Okay. So thank you to the host for inviting me, and I will touch on what are the SDGs. I think most of us are familiar with it. I will just touch on it very briefly, and I will talk about what Malaysia is doing, on what is Malaysia's stand on the SDGs since we ratified the agreement to accept the United Nations agenda in 2015. And I will look at how libraries are supporting the SDGs and what they are doing. And I will go into PPM. PPM is the Library Association of Malaysia. PPM is the Malay name, Persatuan Pustakawan Malaysia, Librarians Association of Malaysia. So we normally go by the Malay name, but we also use our English name when we are presenting elsewhere. So how does PPM support the SDGs? We have been doing this since 2020. And I will also share with you how libraries can support the SDGs. I think there are a lot of librarians amongst us right here. And there are ways that we can support the SDGs through our libraries. And I'm taking examples from what other countries are doing. And I will come up with the conclusion, and there's a bibliography at the back. Delisha went through my CV. So I became a librarian in 1983. And then I went into to become a lecturer in 1999. So in 2007, I came back as a librarian, and I retired on 28th of May 2017 at the age of 30. So right now I'm involved with my library association, and right now my library association put my name up for the Asia Oceania Regional Division Committee, and I was chosen. So I have served one term. This will be my second term. And at the same time, I'm also a member of IFLA's Information Literacy section, since information literacy is my specialization actually. So I will be talking here in my capacity as a member and secretary of Asia Oceania Regional Division Committee, and also as a member and past president of the Librarians Association of Malaysia. Okay, so what are the SDGs? I think all of us are quite, or rather I'm assuming that all of us are familiar with the SDGs because it has been thrown to us left, right, and center everywhere. So the SDGs came about. Before the SDGs, there was another agenda that was in place that is known as the Millennium Development Goals, or the MDGs. And this was also set up by the United Nations and was supposed to cover a 15-year period from 2000 to 2015. So they had only eight goals, yeah. Eradicate extreme poverty, etc. So they only had 8. And it ended in 2015, but from the reports that I read online from the United Nations, the MDGs failed to attain the objectives, yeah. And so the United Nations came back together and they come out with the SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals, okay. So this was put out in 2015 after the end of the MDG, and I think it was accepted by all the member states of the United Nations in 2015. So all the member states agree that they will accept the SDGs, and they will make sure that whatever is required by the SDGs, it will be done and implemented by the respective countries. But how much or how far they would go is dependent on the country itself, because as we are aware, there are 17 goals in the SDGs and there are 230 indicators. And I think not every country can fulfill the 232 indicators. So most countries would choose the ones that are relevant to them, okay? So from the MDG, now we have the SDGs. I think all of us are familiar with this. This is the infographic that is officially issued by the United Nations. So there are 18 goals. So if you notice, no poverty and zero hunger. From the SDG, it was MDG goal number 1. So with the SDG, they split up into two. That's why in the SDGs, we find more goals than the MDGs. So there are 17 goals altogether: no poverty, zero hunger, good health, etc., all the way up to partnership for the goals. And according to IFLA, the International Federation of Library Association and Institution, all libraries in the world and all librarians have a role to play in each of the 17 SDGs, and it's how we look at it. Okay, so there are 230, the United Nations Agenda officially is known as the 2030 United Nations Goals for Sustainable Development. And the short form is, we keep on referring to it as to the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And it's supposed to last from 2015 to 2030. Now we are in 2022, and we have got another more 8 years to go. So in 2015, all the United Nations member states agreed to adopt the UN agenda, okay? And it is supposed to be a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now into the future. What this means is that through the 17 SDGs, the world will be a better place for everyone, and no country will left behind. So there are 17 SDGs, okay, with 169 targets, 247 global indicators, quite a lot, a huge number. Like I said, but not every country is looking or adopting or adapting or providing information on each and every indicator or each and every target. So the theme that they use for the SDG is leave no one behind, meaning that no country, big, small, poor, rich, will be left behind for the betterment of the world. Okay, but in 2020, when we were having the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a comprehensive review framework done, and out of the 1,247 global indicators, they drop 15 indicators, and now there are only 232 indicators to fulfill or to choose from. So like I said, not every country need not or do not have to choose, do not have to satisfy all the global indicators. In Malaysia's case, we did not. We pick and choose the ones that are relevant to the country and that are relevant to the population. So if you want to know what are the indicators, what are the targets, you can always go to this particular website, yeah, SDG Tracker. I call it SDG Tracker. And here you can see or look at all the various targets and indicators, yeah. 47 targets, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, 169 targets and 232 indicators. So it's all listed there. So under each SDG, there is one. So the color refers to the status worldwide, where each country or each nation is. For the ones in green, there is data. Okay, the tracker has got data for certain countries or maybe all countries in the world. For the yellow ones, there is no official data. Okay, and for the red ones, there is no data at all. Okay, yellow, there is data, but it's unofficial. For the red ones, there is no data at all, and there is no monitoring of that particular target or indicator. So the SDG tracker is a good place if you want to know what is happening worldwide as to the status of the attainment of the targets and the indicators. Okay. So what about Malaysia? Like other UN member states, we agreed in 2015 to adopt the UN agenda or the SDGs. So Malaysia, we have got, this is the SDG translated in our local language. Yeah, our official translation agency translated it so that the masses can better understand what it's all about. So tiada kemiskinan is no poverty, kelaparan sifar is zero hunger. So it's all translated up to number 17. Okay, and in Malaysia itself, we have the SDG governance structure in place, and the head of the National SDG Council, which we have in Malaysia, is headed by the Honorable Prime Minister. Okay, and under him, there is an SDG steering committee that is chaired by a minister in the Prime Minister's department, and this minister is in charge of the economy of the country. Okay, and under him, we have the SDG Technical Committee, which is chaired by the Director General of the EPU. EPU is the Economic Planning Unit of Malaysia. So the SDGs are actually taken care of by the Economic Planning Unit of Malaysia. So they are the ones who actually looked at the various components of the SDGs and assigned them to the relevant stakeholders. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sectors involved, and to each sector there are SDGs allocated. Okay, so if we are looking at this one, I'll just pick a one that has got only one. Human Capital Committee, it is headed by the Ministry of Education, and they are only in charge of SDG number 4, which is about quality education. Okay, so the rest of the SDGs are assigned to the various committees, and all these ones that you see, EPU is Economic Planning Unit, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Energy and Water. So it's all headed by a ministry. And then you have the Private Sector Committee, which is the private sectors are invited to actually participate. The ones on top here are the official from the government. The one here are from the private sectors. So you have the SDSN Malaysia and the United Nations Global Council. Okay, and they also invite civil society. Civil society meaning these are all the organizations, NGOs and all that. They sit also in the technical committee in a group known as the civil society organization. And so this is where every organization comes in. And we have to bear in mind that each of these 7 trusts or component or sectors are represented by ministries, agencies, states, United Nations agencies, private sectors, academicians, and the NGOs. So all of these people are actually involved in looking at the SDGs, the attainment, and how far it is, what is being done with the government itself. So we can see that from the governance structure that Malaysia's government is taking a serious interest in the SDGs. It's not just hearsay. It's not just something that you just mention but you do not do, but they actually have a governance structure in place. Yeah. So EPU, the Economic Planning Unit, has published 1, 2, 3, 4 of these 4 publications. Yeah. This is when the first one was when the government initially assessed. They look at all the SDGs, they look at the targets, they look at indicators. Where is Malaysia? Okay, so they came out with an assessment report in 2018. And then at the end of 2018, they come out with the actual attainment. Yeah, so where is Malaysia when you are talking about SDG 1, SDG 2, etc., etc.? So in 2019, they came out with the second report for the attainment. And in 2020, they came out with another report. So Malaysia has produced 3 reports. One is a preliminary report, 3 is the end of the year report. And they also have a dashboard where we can go and go to the dashboard and choose a particular SDG, look at the particular target, look at the particular indicator and see whether Malaysia is involved or it are keeping data about that particular or monitoring that particular indicator. Like I said, Malaysia did not choose all the indicators. There are certain indicators that we did not pick up because we felt that it was not relevant to the country's development. Okay. So I have put the URL there if you want to look at it. So all these, if you search online, it's online. It's a digital publication, yeah. So Malaysia has got what we call a Malaysia plan. So every 5 years, that the government will sit down and write out the country's Malaysia plan. So we are now in our 12th Malaysia plan, which I think will end sometime next year. So within the 12th Malaysia plan, the government has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trusts. And in each of the 7 trusts, they have listed down what are the SDGs that will contribute to that particular trust. So you see that all the SDGs are there, all 17 SDGs are taken care of. So this is in our 12th Malaysia plan. In the 11th Malaysia plan, the same thing was done. They align or they map the SDGs to the various trusts within the plans. Okay. And when the Prime Minister launched the 12th Malaysia plan, one of the things that he touched was on SEPA. SEPA meaning communication, education, and public awareness. He made a promise saying that the 12th Malaysia plan will be aligned to the SDGs, and they have done that. And he also called upon the nation to actually communicate, educate, and make the public more aware of what SDGs is all about. The government can be doing all the SDGs initiatives, but if the public doesn't understand what it's all about, then it comes to zero as well. So one of the initiatives that is ongoing right now, and this is where the library also comes in, that we communicate and we educate and we make the public aware of what SDGs are all about and why they need to understand what it's all about and how can we go implementing it and how can we help communities to actually get involved in SDG projects, related projects. Okay. So our budget, last year's budget also, they had 3 focus and all 3 focus are aligned to the various SDGs. So this is just to show that Malaysia's government is serious in looking at SDGs as it is, because this is, we agreed to adopt it in 2015. Okay. So as far as libraries and SDGs are concerned, the main entity that is taking care of us, first we have the United Nations. Yeah. If you look at the documentation in the United Nations clearly outlines or gives IFLA, the International Federation of Library Association and Institution, the mandate to actually make sure that libraries and librarians are on board with the SDGs. And IFLA recognized, United Nations recognized 3 SDGs. Goal number 4, goal number 16, goal number 17. Okay. So they said that libraries and librarians can involve in these 3 SDGs, 4, 16, and 17. And they are quality education, peace, justice, and strong institution. And number 17 is partnership for the goals. Okay, so these 3. But IFLA went further. Okay, since the mandate has been given to IFLA to look or see how library and library associations are doing with the SDGs, IFLA went a step further to say that the library is actually involved in all the 17 SDGs. It's how you look at it. Because when you look at SDG 1 to 17, of course, the libraries cannot help or cannot by itself says, okay, we can stop hunger problems in the world. But what we can do is, we are the ones who have got the information, the documentation, and the knowledge to actually help researchers and those involved in taking care of the SDGs with information. So we are actually the information keeper, information provider, etc. So we are the liaison or the bridge between the need for information about a particular indicator, a particular target, a particular goal with the information sources that are available either on the internet or in libraries throughout the world. Not only libraries in Malaysia or in your country, in Sri Lanka, you have access to your colleagues all over the world who can help you get information that you need, okay, if it's required. So IFLA went several steps further by saying that we are involved in all the 17 SDGs, but priority was 9, 11, 16, 17, and the rest. Okay. Now, if the audience wants to know what are the indicators, what is the definition, how can we understand what it is, please go to the SDG tracker. Okay, I've given you the URL there. In the SDG tracker, right at the bottom of the first page, you have this. Okay, you have this SDG infographic. So when you click, for example, if you click the example I gave, I think, okay, I click at number 1. Okay, so if you click on number 1, it will bring you to this page, and it will tell you that it's explanation of what SDG number 1 is all about. And they also tell you that it has 7 targets and 14 indicators. So as you go down the list, as you go down further down, they will explain what are the 7 targets and what are the indicators in each of the targets. So there's 17 targets for 14 indicators. So if roughly if we divide by 7, there could be 2 indicators per target. So if you want to know further what are the indicators and how can your library understand more about indicators and how your library or your librarian association or librarians can actually get involved in it, go to the SDG, look at the target and look at the indicators and see how we can play our role in that particular indicator. Okay. So what is PPM and how does PPM supports the SDG? The PPM is the Librarians Association of Malaysia. This is our logo. Persatuan means association. Pustakawan means librarian. That's Malaysia. So locally, we are known as Persatuan Pustakawan Malaysia. Internationally, we prefer to use Persatuan Pustakawan Malaysia, but we also need to provide a translation to the name. So we are known as the Librarians Association of Malaysia. We were established in 1955 as the Malayan Library Group. As you guys are aware, we just celebrated our Independence Day on the 31st of August, 1957. So the Malayan Library Group is older than our country, independence. Yeah, we are 2 years behind. 2 years behind. Yeah, we are 67 years as of 6 June. We registered our association at the Registrar of Societies in Singapore. At that time, Malaya and Singapore was one country. So we registered our association at the Registrar of Societies in Singapore on 6 June 1955. So that's why our National Librarians Day is the 6th June of every year to commemorate the establishment of the association on 6 June. Okay. So we were known as the Malayan Library Group, and at that time we had our British colleagues who are librarians of a number of institutions in Malaysia, and they were instrumental in setting up the association. So the association went through several name changes because we were with Singapore and then Singapore left us, and then we had 2 states from Borneo came into with us, and we became Malaysia. In 1963, our country became officially Malaysia. And we went through several name changes in accordance with the change in the history of the country. But finally, in 1998, through our annual general meeting, we decided to change our name to the Librarians Association of Malaysia, to reflect that it's an association set up for the librarians. Okay. Initially, it was set up for the library, but now we feel that we have changed it to librarians. And Malaysia, through PPM, is represented at the IFLA Asia Oceania Regional Division Committee. So I am the representative there, and I know Sri Lanka is represented by Dr. Premala Gamage. She also sits with me on the Asia Oceania Regional Division Committee, and she's a very active member. She has been there longer than me, and she's very knowledgeable about IFLA and everything else about IFLA. So I learned a lot from Dr. Premala. Okay. IFLA Asia Oceania Regional Division Committee itself has got 6 action plans. Remember, I said that IFLA was tasked by the United Nations to make sure that libraries and librarians worldwide are on board with the SDGs. So last year, I think last year when we formed, this last year, our action plan for last year until this year, we have got 6 action plans under the IFLA Regional Asia Oceania Regional Division Committee, and 2 of the action plan involves the SDGs. Yeah, the one of them is SDG engagement. The committee is supposed to promote greater understanding of the importance of the SDGs to the libraries and libraries of Asia Oceania, and we have to help support them through our work, through our talks, through our initiatives. And we are also encouraged, or we are also tasked to mobilize national library associations to engage with relevant national authorities, meaning each country has got a body that looks after the SDGs. In Malaysia, for instance, I was talking to you about the EPU, or the Economic Planning Unit. So the Library Association of Malaysia has to make sure that we are in touch with the Economic Planning Unit and make them aware that within the libraries are also doing or undertaking a lot of projects and initiatives that actually supports the SDG for the country, and it should be reported in the country's SDG reports. So our Librarians Association has touched base with those in the Economic Planning Unit in Malaysia, and we are trying our level best to tell them that we have to report all the SDG related activities that are being done or undertaken by the various libraries in Malaysia. Okay. And the other action plan is to enrich the library map of the world. The library map of the world, I will go in detail further. It's an initiative by IFLA, and it records the statistics of all the libraries in the world. But the important component is the SDG stories. We have got one component known as the SDG stories. And in there, we encourage all libraries and librarians worldwide to actually document all the SDG initiatives that you have done in your country, in your library, and put it in the SDG stories of the library map in the world. Yeah, I will go into that further. I think most of us are working towards getting our story onto this library map of the world. Okay, PPM's role in supporting the SDGs. What we do now, what our council members are doing is that we go around the country, or we just have webinars telling our libraries and librarians what SDG is all about, how you can contribute, what you should be doing, and most importantly, we have to stress on them that the library has a role to play in SDGs, and we need to play that role and make sure that our national authorities are aware that we are doing it, and we have it reported somewhere in the government report. Okay, and we also needs to show the relevant agencies that Malaysian libraries are supporting all the works that are being done towards the SDGs. Okay. So most of our programs, which, like I said, we began in 2020 because Malaysia itself embarked on the SDG in 2018 when they had the initial awareness report. Okay, so 2018 we were not so into SDGs. Libraries in Malaysia was not so into SDGs. 2019 we were just getting a feel of what it is all about. Primarily because in 2018, Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia, was the host for the IFLA World Library and Information Congress. And at that particular Congress, people were talking about SDGs. So Malaysia felt that, okay, we have to pick this up. okay, because I think it's an important agenda, and it will also show the leaders of the country that libraries and librarians have a role to play in supporting the SDGs. So we also do a lot of programs to encourage and help members to lend their support to the SDGs. These are mostly through our talks, through our workshop. Okay. So what have we done so far? These are just stuff that we have done, and hopefully the Library Association or the Librarians Association of Sri Lanka can follow up. Most of the things that we do is not something that we just think about it. It's an idea that came from us. Most of the things that we do, we look at what other countries are doing. Okay, we look at Singapore, we look at Australia, the nearer countries here. What are they doing to support the SDG initiatives in the country? So we look at what they are doing, and then we engage with those people, and we ask, how can we do something similar in Malaysia? And my thinking or my feeling or my experience is that librarians everywhere are very helpful. When you ask for help, they are willing to help us out. So a lot of the things that we do is not something original from us. Some are original, but most of them, we look at what other people are doing. What is the Philippines doing as far as SDGs is concerned? So we look at the neighboring countries and we try to emulate. Yeah. So the first thing that we did was we had a workshop. So we called all the librarians from various libraries in Malaysia. So 41 of them came from all types of libraries. We wanted a representative. We do not want such a huge group. So we invited Miss Teh Ai Cheng. She is from the National Library Board of Singapore. And at that time, she was a member of IFLA's governing board, or GP. And she talked about IFLA's involvement with SDGs, how important it is for Malaysian libraries to play an active role in the SDG. Then she explained to us about the library map of the world, and she was encouraging all of us to write about our activities and contribute to the SDG stories. Okay, and she was telling us that the association needs to be leading the libraries and librarians of Malaysia to fully go into supporting the government with the SDG initiatives. Okay, so I was there in my capacity then as IFLAS. That time we were known as the Regional Standing Committee of Asia Oceania. So I was a secretary and member, and I facilitated a workshop on IFLAS SDG stories. So from that workshop, we had about a number of entries to the Library Map of the World, but not all were able to be included in the SDG stories because there were parts of it that were incomplete. Okay, so 21st January was our first attempt to actually move forward with the SDGs initiatives. But on the 18th of March 2020, our Prime Minister then declared lockdown. Okay, so we could not do anything because all libraries closed, and we had to sit back and think of how we can do it while we are under confinement in the home. So this was our one and only workshop in 2020, and on 18th March 2020, we went into lockdown. So there was a gap of nothing happening. Not because we were not doing anything, because most of us were more focused on how to get information to our users who are also under lockdown in their homes. So most libraries were more focused on developing systems or doing writings or communicating with their users during the entire pandemic. Because users did not have access to the libraries. We have students who are still studying, we have school children who are studying, who needs access to information. So most of the libraries in Malaysia were more focused on that. So we thought, okay, PPM, let's step back and let the various libraries do their own thing, because they were also in a state where they have to quickly recover and provide online services to their users. But in 2021, okay, Pustaka Sarawak is a state library, and they decided to have an online conference, yeah, and their focus was the SDGs. They used the SDGs as the conference theme. They picked on 3, 4, 8, 10, 17. They picked on these 2, 4, 6 SDGs. So all the papers were geared or written focusing on how libraries can help or can support work on these 6 SDGs. So it was quite, or rather it was a successful conference, and we were happy at the association level because our members are starting to pick up SDG again. Okay. So in October 2021, the Ministry of Higher Education decided to have a webinar, and known as, it's a leadership webinar. And one of the components that they wanted to include was how the library leaders can support the SDGs. So I was asked to come in since I'm familiar what is happening. So I was there and I talked to the chief librarians and deputy chief librarians and potential chief librarians about their role in supporting the SDGs, that they have an important role to play, that within the university there are a lot of research concerning SDG initiatives, and so they must move out from the library and move into the academic world to actually help or assist the academics who are involved with SDG related projects. So it was quite I received quite good feedback from them, and they are doing their best now to assist. So that was in October 2021. And then in November 2021, we found out that Malaysia does not have a story at all on the library map of the world. We want our stories to be included. We did submit our stories. We have 5 stories that we submitted, but all the 5 stories did not meet the mark because they were lacking one of the important component that is necessary, that is impact. It's important to know the impact of a project on the community. So we call Miss Christine Parbeza Ramireza, who is the IFLA Member Engagement Officer, and she gave us a long talk about how to write a proper story, what is required, what must you do, what must you not do. And this was very helpful for us to actually rewrite our stories and send it back. Yeah. So that was on November 2021. And then from time on and off, I get invited in my capacity as the member of the Regional Division Committee to talk about SDG stories. This was at one of the local university libraries, University Kebangsaan Malaysia. So I talked about, they wanted me to talk about SDGs. What are SDGs? What is Library Map of the World? How can they contribute to the SDG story? So I spoke to them on these 3 topics, and they are now working on some SDG stories, which they will submit finally. Then in March again of 2020, the academic libraries, yeah, our association has got a standing committee of academic libraries, and one of this is one of the public university in Malaysia, UPSI, University Pendidikan Sultan Idris. This is an educational university. They were tasked with organizing an SDG related competition for all academic libraries in Malaysia. So what the libraries had to do was submit a report of an SDG related activity program project that took place between 1st January to 28th February. But it must have 3 SDGs, and SDG 17 is mandatory. So you must have 2 other SDGs plus SDG 17 as the SDG the project is based on. So we had cash prizes for the winners, and I think the university that won this particular project was, they did Braille I think they had braille, they had brailing services for those who are visually impaired. Yeah. And another winner was manuscript. Yeah. Because manuscript is, if I'm not mistaken, is related to SDG 11. And one of the indicator is preservation of cultural heritage. And Malay manuscripts are cultural heritage of the country. So I think that was one of them. The rest I cannot remember, but the winners were able to tie in whatever project they were doing to an SDG. So it was very well written. I think they are going to publish it in the near future. So that was done in March. So we can see that the SDG initiatives is slowly picking up, okay, from where we left off in 2020. Then we had again the IFLA, Regional Division Committee on Asia Oceania. We had Southeast Asian Libraries on the United Nations SDGs webinar on 23rd June. Again, we called Miss Christine to talk about, because our focus now is the ASEAN countries, yeah, the 10 ASEAN countries. So she talked about, how libraries can contribute their stories to the SDGs and their data to the library map of the world. So Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore had representatives to talk about how their libraries engage with local authorities. Okay, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore. Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines, the librarians talked about their engagement with the community on activities that are related to the SDGs. I think Pak Ida from Indonesia is one of the audience, and there was a very good project coming up from Indonesia, where they actually engaged with the local community. Oh my God, I forgot what is the name of the place, but they did that, and it's ongoing. So we had our 3 speakers and our 6 speakers. So in ASEAN, if you are aware, there are 10 countries. So some countries are missing. So the missing countries will be Brunei. 4 countries are missing: Brunei, Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. So we hope to actually engage in these 4 other countries through another webinar, hopefully. Okay. So this is an initiative of the IFLAS group. Okay. Our representative, Dr. Rashida Bul Hassan, who is the immediate PPM Press President, represented Malaysia, and she talked about libraries' engagement with national authorities in supporting the United Nations SDGs. So this is where she talked about how PPM is now reaching out to the Economic Planning Unit of Malaysia to actually make them aware that libraries in Malaysia are doing reports and all that. Okay. So then we also had another one here. I was asked to speak on SDGs again, and I think we had a lady from the librarian from the University of Colombo in Sri Lanka, Dr. Tirati, and she also talked about initiatives that have been taken in Sri Lanka by the academic libraries. So then again, I was asked to give a talk on SDGs by a local academic library. So we can see the momentum picking up now. And now I'm giving this one, talking about how my library association is supporting the SDGs. So, and we are also responsible for compiling data for IFLA Library Map of the World. Okay, we work closely with the National Library of Malaysia, and we have Miss Jean, who is the secretary and member of IFLA's Management of Library Association, and she actually compiles data, and these are the data we have, yeah, number of national libraries, etc. But you look at the dates, it's already dated, so I think we need to provide new data for this, and I'm sure Sri Lanka also, if you do a search, go to this particular website, do a search on Sri Lanka, I think Sri Lanka's data is also there, and from here you can know the number of libraries, libraries with internet access, full-time staff, volunteers, registered users, physical visits, physical loans, and electronic loans. These are the data that we provide to IFLA, and IFLA actually loads it onto the Library Map of the World. Okay, this is our data here. Okay, and also we just found out rather recently that there is a Sustainable Development Goal Center in Kuala Lumpur, and it is headed by the Kuala Lumpur City Hall or the Dewan Bandaraya KL, and it's supposed to be the first SDG center in Malaysia and Asia. So we are also touching base with these people since they are located in a library in Kuala Lumpur itself, and we are working with them to actually report what we are doing in libraries and by librarians. Okay, so how can libraries support the SDGs? I will run this through very quickly. One is communication, education, public awareness to enhance understanding of SDGs. This is where the library can come in. You can communicate, you can advocate, you can involve the university community. For example, you can inform, this I'm using university as an example. You can inform the public about SDGs, how you promote through your talks, like what we are doing in Malaysia. And you can also share information about SDGs in our libraries, public spaces. Yeah, you have the SDG infographic, you paste it everywhere. So when people ask, you can actually can converse with them about it. You can use them as backdrops. You can use them as infographics. You can also organize webinars. And this is from Victoria University. They actually put this, when you go into their website, they have got a library guide that is specially about SDGs. And they have this particular infographic. This library supports the SDGs. So if somebody goes to their website and they look at it, they say, okay, this library supports the SDGs. So if anyone look at it, they know that this library is involved in SDG initiatives. The other one is you identify and get to know researchers who are involved in SDG initiatives. Okay. In the University of Malaya, where I was from previously, there are a number of sustainability projects going on, especially forest, water. So this is where the Library staff comes in to actually offer themselves to be a member of the team. And they are the ones who actually do the documentary research. They look out for information, they look out for stuff that is related to the project. So if the sources are not in the library, the librarians will go out of their way to get it from elsewhere, be it international or local. So this is where you can, as librarians, you can play the role. You get involved, yourself involved in projects. Okay. The other one is make sure our collection expertise and infrastructures are available. This is where you open up your local content to the public, to the world. Actually, you've got open science, sorry, let's repeat. You have open science, you have open access, open educational resources, open data, research, data management, information, institutional repositories, local content creation. All of these you can open up to the entire world so that those who are doing SDG related process or initiatives can actually use your resources for this. Okay. The other one is collective reporting. What I mean collective reporting is all the public universities in all the academic libraries in Sri Lanka come together and map their activities to the SDG initiatives and prepare a report. This one you can go to this particular website and look at COW. COW is the Council of Australian University Librarians, and every year they actually ask each of their member to prepare a report of their library activities and map it. Okay, map it to the 17 SDGs. This project is related to which SDG? This project is related to which SDG? And they actually come up with a publication. So they are very visible to their government and to those decision makers. And the other one is they also prepare a report for the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. In Malaysia, SDSN is hosted by the Jeffrey Sachs Center on Sustainable Development. We have not done our reporting to them, but touch wood, we will. And I found out for Sri Lanka, the host is the Energy Resources Institute in New Delhi. They are the host for Bhutan, India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. So what Australia did was, the Australian University Libraries came up with this. So when you look at this report, you go to this particular website, you can see all the activities of all the academic libraries in Australia and how it is linked to the SDGs. Yeah, so the bottom line, they conclude by saying that academic libraries in Australia are supporting the SDG initiatives of the United Nations. Okay, and this is the report that they send to the SDSN. Apart from doing this, they also send this one. Why? Because they need to show those who are in power that libraries and librarians are also supporting the SDG initiatives. Okay. this is the one, that's the website this is the one. And they say that they are responsible for this. So it's good if you have all your SDG initiatives, you can make a report and tell them, okay, this is how Sri Lankan libraries are responding to SDG, United Nations SDGs, and this is what we are doing in relation to the SDGs, and these are the projects that we are doing. Okay, Malaysia has not done it, but we are thinking of writing it out soon. And then you make sure that your National Library statistics are reported in the IFLA Library Map of the World. Sorry for the typo. Okay, so this is established in 2017. You have data for all the countries, for all the world, and it's a statistically based website, a lot of information there. And also one component is the SDG stories. Yeah, this is where you can write stories and actually submit to the IFLA Library Map of the World, and they will do a nice write-up for you, and they will publish it if you meet all the criteria. So this is the Library Map of the World, giving statistics of all the countries. This is the SDG stories. Okay, so far, the last one I went there a few days ago, there are only 34 countries who have sent their stories, and there are only 56 stories. Okay, if we reflect on how many countries are there in the world and how many stories that are possible, I think this number should increase. Is it easy to write an SDG stories? It's a yes and no. If you have your facts, you have your figures, it's quite easy to write, because you don't have to actually do the writing. You provide the information, etc., in whatever form to the people at IFLA, and they have a team who actually rewrites the whole thing, and they get back to you and they tell you, is it okay? And then you do a lot of discussing with them, and then you need to send 1 or 2 very good photos. But like I said, the important component is the impact. You have done a project, so what is the impact on the community? And this is where Malaysia, all the 5 stories that we send, we fail to show impact. Why? Because the projects are new, and impact was supposed to be obtained or can be seen within 1 or 2 years. So we are keeping these 5 stories on hold, and probably we will resubmit when we have the impact better. Okay. So, but finally, Malaysia managed to have one after years of waiting. So 28th February in 2022, our first story in IFLA appeared, and it was the Reading Seeds program that is run by the Pustaka Negeri Sarawak, or the Sarawak State Library, and they talk about giving early reading materials to babies. And the mother, as the baby is growing up, will assist or help the child to start reading. So by the time he or she reaches school, the child is able to recognize alphabets, simple words. So this has now been taken up as a national initiative, and all the state libraries in Malaysia are doing this, because the study has found out that this project is very successful in eradicating illiteracy, yeah, amongst the Malaysian community. Okay, so that was our first story. So if you go here, if you want to know more about this, there is a website where you can actually download the PDF version of the storytelling manual, and it tells you step by step what you are supposed to do. I will leave these slides after I make the corrections to the host, because there's some typo errors there later on. Okay. So in conclusion, it's there, but what I want to say basically is that all the member countries of the United Nations has agreed in 2015 to participate in the United Nations agenda, or the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. And at the end of the day, if you actually read the actual document, it's all about making the world a better and safer place for everyone. No country is left behind in terms of progress, development. Yeah, some of us can say, yes, we can say it, but can it be actually done? But we have to make an effort towards it. Okay. So as far as Malaysia is concerned, what we did was, like I said, some of the ideas that we had are not original. What we did was, we look at what other libraries in the world are doing. We look at Australia, we look at our neighboring countries, Singapore, Thailand, all the countries within surrounding Malaysia, and see what have they done to support the SDG initiatives of their country, to support their country's adoption of the UN agenda, and we copy. Okay, we copy, we make it better, we do things to make it better. If we feel that it's not that good, or we feel that it's not suitable for our country, we amend it, adapt it a bit, and we roll it out. Yeah. And what we feel that, what I personally feel that when we do all this, when we tell people that we are supporting our country's stand on the SDGs, we are actually providing visibility for libraries and our librarians at the national, regional, and international level. Okay, when the story about reading seats in Sarawak appeared in the story SDG stories, we received a lot of inquiries about who should we contact about this, how can we know more about this project. So you can see that people are looking at it. So as librarians, and to support our country's agreement to adopt the agenda, we have to make sure that library activities that are SDG related, we should be documented and reported somewhere. And I strongly feel that somewhere is the library map of the world, because that particular website will be there for everyone to access. So do send your SDG stories there. Okay. So I have provided some references that I use for my write-up, but rest assured I will do the corrections and I will send my slides back to Mr. Hasita for distribution to whoever who requires it. So I can be reached there. That's my email address. I've got a Facebook, I've got a blog, I've got a Twitter, and I've got IG. So not really active, but I'm active on my Facebook. Okay, thank you. And I hand it over to Delisha.
Thank you, Dr. Edson, for that valuable and very insightful session. I think we have a couple of questions on the chat box, because now the floor is open for questions and answers. I have one question. This is sent by Rang Rao. So he or she, that's a she has asked, can you explain public libraries, Malaysia, and development programs? That's the question that I can understand here. I think some words are missing.
Public libraries development programs. Okay, right now as we speak, the public libraries in Malaysia is having a convention on the island of Penang, and I think they are looking into how they can go further. We have to remember, in Malaysia we have got 14 states. Okay, so we have 14 states. I hope I'm correct. Someone kill me for that. I think we have got 14 states, and the National Library is the national library. Perpustakaan Negara Malaysia is the national library for our country. And every state has got their own state library under the purview of the state government. Okay, so the state library is under the purview of the state government, and the chief minister of each state sits as the chair of the library board. So having said that, the National Library of Malaysia also looks at every state and how the progress of each state library is going. So I can say that as I speak, and they are having a convention there, the progress for all the libraries are similar, are on the same level, but you have states who are a step further. Why? Probably people might dismiss me for saying that, probably because they have got more money. Yeah, the budget is bigger. Exemplary, I would definitely say Pustaka Negeri Sarawak or the Sarawak State Library. They are the first in the country to actually get a story, one. And recently they won the United Nations Information Literacy Awards 2020 for one of their projects. So there are libraries, public libraries in Malaysia who are further up, further away from other libraries, but others are slowly catching up. Because the entire state library, they also have a committee where they meet to actually discuss one and another's problems and plans, and they look at what each other are doing and they cooperate in all that. So I can say that as far as library, I am not in a position to actually comment because I have all my life been an academic librarian. Okay, but from my interaction with those from the public library, they are doing what they are supposed to do. Again, like I said, some state libraries are a bit further up in front, but others are catching up. Yeah, we've got Penang. We've got the state library has got a digital library, and recently another state, Kedah, has got a digital library. So we've got two states with a digital library, and the Sarawak, the Pustaka Negeri Sarawak, has also acquired the archives. Yeah, they are building the archives together with the library. So with 14 states, the progression is different. We cannot say that they are all on the same level, but they try not to be behind too much. They catch up through all their meetings. So that would be my response. Yeah, coming from someone who is not directly involved with state library development. Yes, Delisha, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I hope so too. We do have another question. It's more into school libraries. Can you please explain school libraries' reading development programs for students?
Okay, in Malaysia, we have got something that is known as NILAM. God knows what is it. I cannot translate it. It's NILAM, N-I-L-A-M. NILAM is a program whereby the students, the school students are encouraged to read storybooks, and they are supposed to report their readings to the schools, and the schools look at their readings, compile them, and then come up with an annual report. So as far as school libraries are concerned, we have what we call the teacher, media and library teachers. We do not have teacher librarians in the public libraries, in the public schools, but we have got media and library teachers. Yeah, so the media and library teachers, apart from teaching, they have got a teaching workload. They also look after the school resource centers, and they are the ones who actually inculcates the reading habits to their students through the various programs. So if you go to they have got lots of Facebook's account everywhere. You can see that through their Facebook account, a lot of work is being done on making sure that school children reads. But again, you cannot say that everybody is on the same page. Yeah, some schools might be lower down, some schools might be very, very high up. Again, depending on the location, because you have to bear in mind, we have got rural schools, you have got urban schools, there are schools in right smack dab in the city centers where you have access to so much books and so much information. At the same time, you also have schools that are in the rural areas where you do get books, but it would take time for the books to get to them. So there are circumstances which actually will explain the progress of reading culture and inculcating reading habits among school children in Malaysia. But if you do want to have further information, I have my email there, and I can keep you guys in touch with the Association of Media and Library Teachers. They have an association in Malaysia there. Yep, and they are in a better position to actually respond to all your queries.
Thank you. I think that also answered the question. We have another question in the line. How are SDG initiatives in university affiliated colleges, libraries in Malaysia? So
I did post a slide. I think personally, this is my personal view. we are slow to move, yeah, because like I said, we only started going to SDGs in 2020, and right now I'm getting a number of invitations to actually present about SDGs to the academic libraries. Now they understand what it's all about. They are moving towards that direction. They are moving. The one important thing I tell them is that engage with the academics who are directly involved in SDG related projects. I think almost all public universities in Malaysia and also private colleges, private universities have some form of SDG project going on. Either the academics are partnering with people from outside of the country or within the country to run SDG related projects. So get involved with these people, get to know them, and put yourself within the group and make sure you can help them out, especially with documentation, because sometimes these people need a lot of information all at once. So I sincerely feel that the librarian is in the best position to actually be the conduit to get all the information from everywhere, worldwide and also locally.
Right. Yes, one more. What are the performance indicators given for SDGs? I don't know with reference to which SDG this one is referred, but
like I said, yeah, okay. I'm just going to generalize this. If you go to the SDG tracker that I showed you just now, sdgtracker.org, for every target, for every indicator, there is a performance indicator that is required. Be it, I don't know, some can be in terms of monetary values, some can be in terms of level of health of the people, some can be in terms of literacy index. There are different performance indicators used for the different targets and indicators. So if we want to know which performance indicator is being used for a particular target or indicator, we need to go into the SDG dashboard itself and figure out what is it. For Malaysia, I gave you, there was one picture I gave you that had 1, 2, 3, 4 publications, and there is a dashboard. Yeah, if you were to go to click into that dashboard, you can see what are the performance indicators that are being used by Malaysia to measure the achievement of each of the indicators that we have selected to use or to report. And so we know where we are. Are we in terms of poverty? Have we totally abolished poverty? And if we have, what is the indicator? Is it salary? Is it I don't know, household income? So the indicators are all there. One just needs to go and check, because I think the SDG goals, targets, and indicators are very, very clear. The performance indicators are all written there. We just need to explore it further.
Thank you. There's one more question from Hitesh Kumar. That is, how SDG affect college libraries? As college librarian, how can I implement those in my college?
Okay. I think there was one part of my presentation that I said how libraries can support SDGs. One of them to make yourself very visible is to actually, like Victoria University Library in Australia, they actually have a library guide that they put on their website, and on the guide they provide links to all the SDG initiatives worldwide. Yeah, they do not do a lot of write-up, they just provide links, and they also put that infographic that says my library practices SDGs, etc., etc. So that is one way we can make ourselves very visible. So when people, and then we also have to get, in your case, if they are your college academics who are involved in SDG projects, yeah, SDG projects, get involved with them, ask them how you can help. And also another thing, if you want to do, normally it's good if you do it as a group, but if you feel that you want to do it for yourself for the first time, you list down all your library activities that you did, just a trial, yeah, all the library activities that you did in 2021. And then you try to map it out to the SDG, to each of the SDGs, okay? You teach an information literacy class. What would that information literacy class contribute to? It would definitely contribute to quality education. because your students understand more about how to look for information, etc., etc. But to actually find out which indicator it involves, you need to go into the SDG tracker I gave you, click on the particular goal, and you read all the indicators. Yeah. For example, if you have manuscripts and you are preserving them, be it digitizing and all that, I think that comes under SDG goal number, if I'm not mistaken, under 11, if I'm not mistaken, is it 9, something about cities. And under one of the indicator is that preserving cultural heritage for the future. And manuscripts are a cultural heritage, and your process of digitizing it is actually conserving your heritage, written heritage, print heritage for your future generation. So it takes you, just try mapping every activity that you have done for 2021. Not every activity can be mapped. Okay, those you can find out that maybe you had 100 activities in 2021, and then you realize, oh, only 10 I can map, because those are the 10 that are relevant to the SDGs. Otherwise, the rest are just things that we do a day-to-day basis. Yeah, I hope that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. We have one last question. I think it's important, that's why I wanted to raise it here. How do you promote users to utilize the library, and what are the promotional activities done for the users? As of nowadays, users do not prefer to come to the library.
I know that is a common problem worldwide, because I think with COVID, I saw some of my colleagues commenting here. In Malaysia, I think we came to a situation where we thought that during the COVID-19 pandemic, we prove ourselves better. We prove ourselves that we are good. So much so that people say, oh, I don't have to go to the library. They've provided everything online. So it was like something that we did that was good, but at the same time, it was like killing us. So right now, the libraries in Malaysia has all opened up. Okay. But at the same time, they are still running webinars. Yeah, because during the pandemic, they realized that when they have lots of sessions online, people from places that are not within that area. For example, if you are staying like 100 kilometers from my library, you can still attend my webinar without having to physically come to the library. So COVID-19 did make us do a lot of good things, but sometimes I feel, this is a personal view, some of the things are actually going to kill us in the process, because people are so used to having things online, digitized and all that. Now, what are Malaysian libraries doing right now? They are doing a lot of things to bring back the community into the campus, into the library itself. So they are doing a lot of physical programs. Yeah. So for public libraries, they are having like meet the authors. They are calling authors of renowned books to actually come and meet with the authors. They have got lots of programs where they do a lot of activities. They do a lot of competition, and to an extent, it's working because recently during the weekend, this is the school break for our school children. So the Librarians Association of Malaysia, together with University of Malaya Library, had a program known as Let's Go to Mars. So we thought we wouldn't get the numbers, but we did get the numbers. A lot of children came in, and I think people are now beginning to want to interact physically. I'm not sure about the situation in Sri Lanka, but in Malaysia, we noticed that when we have programs in libraries, people are beginning to come back because they need to interact with another human being. So the program that we have, Let's Go to Mars, was well received by the local community, because it was for the community within Kuala Lumpur. So people do come in and they bring their children as young as about 7 years old to actually learn about Mars. So I think libraries now have to think of ways of how to bring people back into the library, but not sacrificing whatever services that you have done digitally, because you cannot just cut off a digital service and says, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. Everybody comes back to the library and do it physically. People will hate you for that. Your users will hate you for that. So do something to bring your users back, but at the same time, don't cut off or suspend whatever digital or electronic or online based service that you have given. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Edson, for answering all the questions. I think we have like an overwhelming number of questions, which also shows that the session was very productive and informative. Thanks to you for that. So with that,
feel free to email me, Dilesh.
yes.
I will give my email address is there. Edzana, just my name, my name all joined up at gmail.com. If I cannot answer your questions, I will shoot it to the people who are in a better position to answer the questions.
Yes, we warmly welcome our participants to do so. And I think it's already, we have passed our time and I'm afraid we can't take any more questions as we don't have time. But yes, let's keep this conversation going on as there's an interest from all of us. So with that, we now come to the end of the second pre-webinar. So on behalf of the organizing committee of VICLIS, I would like to actually extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Edson for accepting our invitation and joining the session today in order to do a productive session. And I would also like to thank everyone who joined the session. And we would like to actually invite you for the third webinar, which is upcoming, I think, in the next week. So please join that session as well. And I think we can end the session now and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.